The grand marble hall of the Geneva International Conference Center shimmered under crystal chandeliers. The world's most celebrated linguists, translators, and scholars had gathered for the annual Global Symposium on Lost Languages. Conversations in dozens of tongues rippled across the room, Latin here, Sanskrit there, a dash of Mandarin and Swahili. Cameras flashed near the stage as journalists crowded to capture the arrival of the conference's guest of honor, Professor Adrien Leclerc, the man who could speak to anyone, in any language. Leclerc entered with his usual flourish, his silver hair perfectly combed, his tailored suit immaculate. The press adored him, and he basked in the attention. "Professor, how many languages can you speak now?" someone shouted. Leclerc smiled, his voice smooth. 42 and learning, he said. Though the true art lies not in speaking them, but understanding them. The crowd applauded, and he accepted it as if it were his due. In the far corner of the hall, unnoticed, a maid scrubbed the shining marble floor. Rosa worked quietly, the soft hum of her mop blending with the murmur of intellectuals. Her hands were calloused, her back sore, but her spirit remained kind. Near her sat her daughter, Alina, a thin girl with messy brown hair and sharp, curious eyes. Rosa had brought her along because she couldn't afford to leave her alone at home. While her mother worked, Alina sat in a small chair beside a cleaning cart, reading an old, frayed language book she had found in the hotel's lost and found box weeks ago. Every night, after her mother fell asleep, Alina devoured old dictionaries, encyclopedias, and even conference pamphlets left behind by scholars. Languages fascinated her, their sounds, their shapes, the way they carried worlds within words. She had never attended a proper school beyond the basics, yet she could already read and write in 6 languages fluently. Still, to the world, she was just the maid's daughter. As fate would have it, destiny decided to reveal itself that day. One of the catering staff accidentally knocked over a tray of tea right onto Professor Leclerc's table. Papers and fragile manuscripts scattered everywhere, soaked in amber liquid. Gasps echoed across the hall. Rosa rushed forward to help, apologizing breathlessly as she knelt to clean. "I'm so sorry, sir, please forgive us." Leclerc frowned, his voice sharp. "Be careful, these manuscripts are priceless." He crouched to gather the papers, but before Rosa could stop her, Alina joined in to help. Her small hands picked up a page, and her eyes widened. The text was strange, flowing lines and curves, symbols she had never seen in any book before. Yet somehow, deep in her mind, they made sense. "This isn't ancient Greek," Alina murmured, almost to herself. "It's Proto-Celtic mixed with Iberian roots." Leclerc froze mid-motion. Slowly, he looked at her. "What did you just say?" Alina bit her lip, realizing she had spoken aloud. I just recognized a few words, sir. I'm sorry." The great polyglot straightened, an amused smirk forming. "You recognized Proto-Celtic, my dear, even experts can't." He stopped, noticing the quiet confidence in her eyes. "Very well," he said, handing her a page. "Translate the first line." Everyone watched. Alina's fingers trembled as she traced the faded ink. Then, softly, she spoke. "It says, the river remembers the names of the stars." Silence fell like snow. Leclerc's smirk faded completely. That evening, long after the applause and chatter of the day had faded, Professor Adrien Leclerc sat alone in his hotel suite, staring at the ancient manuscript spread across his desk. His reflection stared back at him from the window, an aging man, still brilliant, yet haunted by the voice of a young girl who had translated in seconds what his entire team had struggled with for months. "The river remembers the names of the stars," he whispered to himself. It wasn't just correct, it was poetic, perfectly aligned with the structure of the Proto-Iberian myth. How could a child from a cleaning crew have known that? He rang the front desk and requested Rosa and her daughter be brought up to his suite. When they arrived, Rosa looked terrified. "Please, sir, if my daughter offended you, she didn't mean." Leclerc raised a hand. "Relax, she didn't offend me, she intrigued me." His eyes turned to Alina. "You claim to know this script, yet there are fewer than 10 people in the world who can even recognize it. Explain yourself." Alina hesitated, her gaze flicking to her mother for reassurance. "I don't claim to know it," she said softly. "I just see patterns. When I look at the words, they talk to me. Not with voices, but through rhythm, structure, and meaning. Like music." Leclerc frowned but handed her another page. "Then read this one. Tell me what it says." The manuscript was longer this time, a passage filled with intricate glyphs. Alina studied it silently, her eyes scanning line by line. She noticed how certain symbols repeated like musical refrains, how the spacing reflected cadence. After a few minutes, she began to speak. This section describes a journey, someone following the wind across seas. It's not just a story, it's a ritual chant. The words were meant to be sung to remember the path home. Leclerc's jaw tightened. That was precisely what his notes had theorized, but he had never published that observation. He stared at her as if seeing something supernatural. "Who taught you this?" he demanded. No one could simply guess such nuance. Alina shook her head. "No one taught me. I just listen to languages. They each have their own music. When I understand the rhythm, I can feel the meaning." Her words struck him like a blow. For all his years of mastery, his approach had been technical, memorization, syntax, phonetics. But this girl, untrained and poor, understood language as a living soul. Leclerc sat back, rubbing his temples. "How many languages do you know?" Alina shrugged shyly. "I stopped counting after 12. Some are just fragments, but sometimes I dream in languages I've never studied." Rosa, still anxious, whispered, "Sir, please don't think she's mocking you. She's just gifted." Leclerc looked between them and finally exhaled, a slow, almost defeated sigh. "Gifted," he repeated quietly. "That's an understatement." As they left, Alina turned back toward him. "Your manuscript," she said, pointing gently, "isn't complete. The missing fragments, they might be hidden in the Iberian monasteries. The symbols hint at a continuation." Leclerc's eyes widened. He hadn't told anyone that theory. How did she know? That night, the great Professor Leclerc couldn't sleep. For the first time in his life, he realized the limits of genius, and that true brilliance could come from the humblest of places. The next morning dawned clear and golden over Geneva, the city sparkling beside its tranquil lake. Inside the grand conference hall, an unusual buzz filled the air. Word had spread like wildfire through the academic community. Professor Adrien Leclerc, the world-renowned polyglot, had been humbled by a maid's daughter who deciphered an ancient language. Some dismissed it as gossip, others whispered with excitement, eager to see the mystery girl for themselves. When Rosa and Alina arrived, the security guards at first refused to let them in, but Professor Leclerc himself appeared at the entrance. "They're my guests," he said firmly, escorting them past the stunned staff. Rosa clutched her daughter's hand tightly, her heart pounding. She didn't understand what her little girl had done to cause all this, but she feared it might cost them their jobs. Inside, the auditorium was packed. Scholars, reporters, and students filled every seat. Cameras lined the aisles. When Leclerc walked onto the stage, the room quieted instantly. Gone was his usual arrogance. In its place stood a man humbled, yet deeply moved. "Yesterday," he began, his French-accented English calm and deliberate, "I witnessed something extraordinary. A discovery not found in the pages of any book, nor in the halls of any university." He turned toward Alina, who sat nervously beside her mother. "A discovery that challenges everything I thought I knew about language and genius." He extended his hand toward her. "Alina, would you join me on stage?" Gasps rippled through the audience. The young girl hesitated, then rose, her small frame dwarfed by the stage's vastness. She walked slowly, her shoes echoing against the polished floor. Rosa watched from her seat, tears brimming in her eyes. Leclerc smiled gently. "This young lady," he said to the crowd, "has done what no scholar in this room could accomplish. She has translated and understood the Proto-Iberian manuscript in its entirety. Not through academic training, but through pure, intuitive genius." The room erupted into applause. Journalists leaned forward, snapping photos. Alina stood frozen, cheeks flushed pink. I only wanted to help," she said softly into the microphone. "Languages aren't puzzles to me. They're alive. They carry memories, songs, and people's hearts." Her voice trembled, but her words silenced the hall. One professor in the front row whispered, "A linguistic savant." Leclerc nodded, pride gleaming in his eyes. "Yes, a true one. And today, I am proud to announce that Alina Rosa will receive a full scholarship from the European Institute of Languages, funded by my personal endowment." The hall exploded into cheers. Rosa buried her face in her hands, sobbing with joy. Alina turned to her mother, smiling through tears. "Mama, I can study now," she whispered. In that moment, the line between maid and scholar disappeared. The girl who once scrubbed floors in silence had become a beacon of brilliance. Months later, Alina's research was published in the Journal of Ancient Linguistics. Her paper, "The Language of Memory," a study of Proto-Iberian oral structure, was praised as revolutionary. In Somewhere, late at night, Professor Leclerc reread her work by the glow of a desk lamp, smiling softly. He had spent his life mastering languages, but the maid's daughter had taught him the one he never truly knew, humility.